Righto, while we're cruising on the beach for the 4th time to get water and all that, we're on North Stratty still again, and we're just cruising up Main Beach from our campsite back to town, do a rubbish run and get some water. We'll probably have a swim on the north coast. Beautiful day, it's just no breeze. It's absolutely spectacular. So anyway, I thought we'd have to talk about fuel economy. The single most asked question about a 62 when you say your own one is, what's the fuel economy like? No one says how much power's it got, how good's the suspension setup. Everyone just seems to ask about the fuel economy. So here goes. We're going to talk about fuel economy first, and then I'm just going to talk garbage about my thoughts on it all, if anyone cares. But my theory is, well, not my theory, my experience with this car is, this is 3 years old. It's a Series 4 2018, so it's the later generation motor. The Series 1 and 2 had an earlier motor, so this is the later one. It is in stock standard form. It did 10 litres per 100 on the highway, cruise control at 110, no worries at all, and 14 round town. So there you go, there's your basics. Towing my caravan, it did 16 up the M1 between the Gold Coast and the Sunny Coast, and my caravan's a 2-ton Junko Outback, so it's just a pop top, so it's not real high, but it's a 19 foot, I think, 2-ton caravan, big off-road wheels and whatever. Off-road, you wouldn't take it off-road much, I don't think. So it did 16 litres per 100 towing. That's stock standard. Stock standard towing a race car down to Bathurst from the Gold Coast. So M1, reasonably flat and undulating, whatever, and then up into the mountains. We averaged 15.1 on that same trip. Another car was following us, a Mazda BT50, 3.2 litre diesel, and he did 13.8, so he's 1.3 litres per 100 better than us. Both our speedos are out by the same amount. On that, of course, when you're talking about stock standard, with stock standard wheels and everything else, the speedo on these is 10 k's out at 100. So when speedo says you're doing 100, you're only doing 90. So when it thinks you've done 15 litres per 100, you've actually done 15 litres per 90. So that's all 10% out. Unless there's some way they've got the odometer right but the speedo reading wrong, which could be a possibility. I've tested the litres per 100 on the screen only twice, but that's all I need to do it, with me filling up and everything else, and it is actually reasonably accurate, so I've just left it. I run a scan gauge, so I know how much fuel I've got left, because when you go away, you don't be running out of fuel, and usually you've still got another 150 k's in the tank when it says empty. It says empty, you've got 40 litres left from memory, and the scan gauge fuel usage is ridiculously accurate. So that's your fuel economy stock standard. Very impressive. Of course, it's really hard. Every caravan's different, so I can't say, oh, tell them my caravan was 16. Your caravan might be not a pop top, higher, bigger, wider, and you might sit on 115 or 110 in a headwind or in hilly country, and straight away you'll be up into the 20s. I have no hesitation saying that whatsoever, you'll be up into the 20s. So it all depends on the country you're in, whatever, the sort of terrain. Now, so that's pretty good. Now we modify our car. You have to set your car up for what you're going to do with it. If you're towing a caravan and that's your main purpose for having one of these cars, you probably won't do anything to the suspension height. You won't add a steel bull bar or a steel, rear bar or any of the stuff I have. You've got to work out what you're doing with the car, and then there'll be other people who know what mods they've got, or they're running their car standard still and towing big blocks of flat caravans, and that's all fine. So I can't tell what the economy's like for that. Someone else will. There's a lot of people out there, big olds and all of them. They've all done talks on fuel economy towing. There's a real good one, I think a bloke did a while ago, did exactly the same route with his 200 series V8 diesel and the Y62 Patrol, and I believe they're very similar in fuel use, which I think is the case. The diesels are better around town and slow going through the bush, but everywhere else they're very similar. Now, my modifications include, I'll go for a walk around the car later, but my modifications include front and rear bar. I go off-road a fair bit. I've got front and rear bar, and I've got rock sliders, and they're all dented and scratched, so I need them. My bar's quite a heavy one and it has a winch in it. So the reason I say all that is because this all mucks up your aero and the weight of your car. The The aero now is a bit ordinary. Like, it used to be smooth, rounded on the front, and the air you go around it and up over the top. I've got a roof rack and this steel bar, and I'm 2 inches higher. Wheels sit a bit wider. So there's all these things that muck up your windage on the car, which take it away from that standard as aerodynamic look as you can get from a big square brick that weighs 2.7 tonne. With all that on there, mine actually weighs 3.5 tonne. So at 3.5 tonne, you've got extra weight, you're accelerating up hills and all the rest. So you are going to use more fuel. My rule of thumb is any mod that's going to affect your aero will muck up your economy on the highway. It won't do much around town. If your car's got bad aero, you're only doing up to 60, 70 k's around town, so it's not going to have a big effect. Out on the highway, doing 100, it has a big effect. As an example, mine was on 35-inch tyres for a trip down to Coffs. I'm sitting on a nice, no wind, no headwind, nice day, driving down the highway, flattish country, M1, northern New South Wales. At 100 k's on cruise control, I was doing 14.1 litres per 100. At 105 on cruise control on the same terrain, I was doing 14.7 litres per 100. At 110, I went to 15.6 litres per 100. So that makes a difference. How fast you want to go definitely makes a difference. So if you see caravans sitting in the left-hand lane and doing their 90 k's an hour, towing their caravan, good on them. They're probably saving some money. They can go further on their, on their retirement money. So I'll probably be doing the same. Maybe not. Anyway, that's big difference. So until I know, if you can look at your driving style as well. Like, I put exhaust on mine, and the note alone probably makes me put the foot down more. When I couldn't hear it, there was no point putting your foot down. But now you can hear it, you go, oh, that sounds good. So you do it more often. That's just one of those things that will also use more fuel, funnily enough. But you get more smiles. So, smiles per litre, you've got to take that into consideration. The other thing is, right, so that's the aero, is your roof rack, all that, and height and wheel width that makes it worse on the highway, but not so much around town. So every one of them, you probably add a litre per 100. So bull bar, you don't count the other ones on the back, like the bull bar, the lift, and the roof rack, add a litre per 100 for each of them. 4-inch tyres on, I still averaged, I think, 14.8 on a recent trip, up to 1770. I'll just hang down here, James. You just doing the rubbish run, are you?
Yeah.
Actually, we're in soft sand. What's on? Let's see how good it is. So I'm in auto still, not in four-wheel drive. Oh, easy. That's 24 pounds and auto. Not even in four-wheel drive. But it just does it easy. Rightio. So righto. So with that said, the other thing that will affect your fuel economy is anything that loads the engine up more. So lots of weight means when you're uphill, obviously you've got to put the foot down more because you're putting an extra half a tonne up the hill. And as I said, mine's 3.5 tonne as it sits. So that's, already 800 kilos, don't know, or 700 kilos, don't know where that all is, but anyway, over the tear. So you got to, all that weight's going to go up, up hills, and got to accelerate out of corners. So of course you're going to use more fuel when it's heavier. The other thing that loads the engine up more is wheel size, like tyre size. Once you go to bigger tyres, 34s and 35s make a difference. So I'm going to add 1 litre per 100 for 34s and an extra litre 100 for 35s. 35s, noticeable difference in the load on the engine when you're accelerating. When you go back to 34s, it seems like way better. The gearing and everything's happy. With 35s, it's just slightly labours, and I don't run the 35s normally. I'm on the 34s now, and I run them for most touring trips, unless we're going somewhere where I don't want to damage tyres. And the 35-inch Nitto trail grapplers I'm using are just a tough tyre, so you just know you're probably not going to damage a tyre on a bit of a cape trip or whatever. So still undecided which ones I'm going to run for Tassie next year, but anyway, So fuel wise, you add that as well. So I am not aerodynamic. I've got the roof rack, the bar work, and I'm 2 inches higher. So there's an extra, say, 3 litres per 100, which takes my highway from, say, 10 to 13. And then you go up in tyre size, you add another litre per 100 for my 34s, which takes it to, say, 14, and maybe even high 14s, 15 with the 35s on. Now, I've shown that. That's obviously normal highway, 100 k's. It's really hard because everyone's highways are different, hilly and whatever. But our highways that I was on, testing it up between the Gold Coast and 1770 to Lowmead actually, our average for that trip with the 34s on and 3 blokes and all our gear, we came in at 3.6 tonne, and we averaged 15.1 for the trip. No trailer, no nothing. So there you go. It's pretty right. So might be 14.8. It was somewhere around there. So that affects it. So as soon as you've got that extra tyre size. Now the big place I noticed it was our recent trip to Cape Melville, where I did 700 k's that should have been in low range. I did half of it in high range, just in auto, because the car does it easy, but with the exhaust you hear it labour. Without an exhaust mod you probably wouldn't hear it, but you go, gee, that's actually working a bit. And especially when stop start like the Wakuka track is just windy, stop start, sand, in around trees, so it's stop start. In low range, the car gets 5 gears to use. For some reason it doesn't go into 6 or 7. It gets 5 gears to use in automatic, low 4. So with all those 5 gears, it's just like, it just does not labour the engine. And the fuel economy in that second half of the 700 k's that should have been low range was 28 for the first half in high range, 23 in low range. So it did it, although it sounded like it's doing a lot of gear changes, heaps less stress on the gearbox. Not that it is a great amount of stress, but it's just less in low range than it was in high range, and anything that's where you're not really going over 50 or 60 much. Remembering that you can get up to, I think, well over 100, like 100, I think it's from like 140 in low if you want to, but if you're only doing that up to 60, up and down windy, definitely more economical, and that just proves how much load the bigger tyres put on everything, and the bigger gap between the gears. So there you go. So as I'm sitting, and I'll do a separate video of the walk around my car because it's a pretty basic setup, this one, but it's what I class as the minimum. As I'm sitting at 3.5 tonne, it is reasonably economical still. 15 litres per 100, 3 blokes full out gear. Like, to me, that's not a huge issue. And obviously a bit more around town, maybe 18, maybe 17, 18. Because the big tyres. I don't use my car around town a lot. I use it on trips, mainly on trips, so that doesn't really worry me too much. This is Point Lookout up ahead, in case you're wondering. This is the northern end of the east coast of Straddie. So I think that's it on my fuel economy. Your right foot makes a big difference. Now I also run the scan gauge, mainly for auto temperature and all that, but I also run. Actually, having said that, you'll hear the fan come on a lot in low range and high range off-road, start, stop. So your auto is doing a bit of work. The fan comes on at 90, and once it comes on, it just goes off. It's only on for like 20 seconds, and it's back under 90, so it's a very efficient system. I run a throttle thingy, what do you call it, an S-drive. I actually run it to dumb the throttle down off-road, and that's all I probably use it for. It's on normal now, it's always on normal. It actually works. The car seems to be really well designed and works on normal. I'm going to try it next time I have the 35s on to see if it actually helps it a bit. It does definitely give you more throttle response and all the rest, but anyway, I'm not going to go into that. I don't think it affects my fuel economy, that's for sure. So, fuel economy. When you get your car, work out what mods you need to do to your car and be prepared for those figures. A litre per 100 on your aero mods when you're on the highway, and a litre per 100 for anything that loads the motor up. So, just any mod, a litre per 100 average should pretty well have you somewhere thinking about what you should use. Now, if you want to tow a really big van, you're going to be well into the 20s, I would expect. In fact, I've heard a few people, I've talked to a few people that are, and they're not bothered, that's just how it is. If you want to, what's the other thing? Tow a big caravan. Oh, supercharge or turbocharge. Some of the figures I've heard after turbocharging and supercharging are ridiculous. They're just a lot of fuel, and while I love the power, this is meant to be my reliable car. I've got another play truck for being silly in. This is my reliable car to go touring in. So I'm not going to supercharge or turbo this one. As much as I'd love to, I'm not going to. I'm going to make a sensible decision for once in my life. Looks like we're about to exit the beach now, so that's perfect timing. Yeah, that's my fuel spill. What is he doing? Is he in two-wheel drive? He's in two-wheel drive. There's always one, isn't there? Why are you not in four-wheel drive?
Oh, that's why it's struggling. I pulled the stick back and bounced back in.
Haha. There you go. That's why you have it in four-wheel drive. Well, he says. Well, I've just got it in four high now. And I'll select a gear because I like the reds up a bit because it saves the embarrassment of being bogged. Here's the step here, right? Look at this. There's a step here, so you've got to be a little bit careful. Back off here. That's why it's good to put in four-wheel drive.
I got really worried because I thought my clutch was just slipping in first, but it's just struggling.
Another example of the fuel economy is 2019 Cape trip. I was the same setup as I've got now with 34-inch tyres. We did 8,000 Ks, 4,000 on-road, 4,000 off-road. Mine did 18.1 litres per 100 average. The Barra Turbo GU did 21. GU Patrol 2D42s, there were two of them, did 17 and 18. The two Navaras Commonwealth Diesel 2.5s did 16 and 17 litres per 100 as an example. Another edit note for this video is the speedo error with a Patrol is no different than most other cars. I have a Ranger at home, a Ford Ranger work car, and I also have an X-Trail. They are both about between 10 Ks out at 100 Ks. So I think all cars seem to have this built-in error, probably to make us slow down. Another interesting bit of information just came in is a mate's just called me. He's up north towing a caravan a bit bigger than mine, so about 19 foot, but with a square top, high top off-road, so it's a not a pop top. He's towing in a Mazda BT50 3.2 litre diesel, and just having a chat to him, he's getting about 22 litres per 100 towing that just at highway speeds, and that's between Gold Coast and Cairns. That's pretty flattish, most of it. So another good example. It's pretty simple. If you want to tow a big square caravan through the air at 100 Ks plus, you got to use fuel no matter what you're driving. The fuel consumption of this thing doesn't bother me one bit, especially considering the car I was tossing up between was this and a TB48 GU.